and welcome back to Devils United for the first Manchester United women preview of 2023. What better way than to do it against our biggest rivals, as we'll go on that a bit later on, against Liverpool. And we've got Andy and Chloe. Andy, how are you doing?
I'm good. Really pleased to be back on. Really realised that I seem to use my laptop when I do these things. So I did 35 minutes of updates, but it arrived in time. So we're all fine now.
Yes. Chloe, how are you doing?
Yeah, I'm good. It's good to be back.
It's good to have you on, as always. Before we get into the preview, we'll quickly jump into the comments. Good evening, Edda. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming into the chat. Good evening, Ravi. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming in. Good evening, Reese.
Oh, Reese. Look, mate, I didn't know you thought I was a phenomenal queen. I just thought you thought I was a queen. I appreciate that, but it's Maisy's channel, mate. You know, you gotta be nice. So yeah, thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Hey there, Niall. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming in. Thank you very much, Niall. And hey there, just me. I hope you are well. Thank you for coming in. Manchester United, we was recently in Malta. Got a 10-0 victory. For you, Chloe, how does that surely positively affects us coming into this Liverpool game? A lot more plays in fitness.
Yeah, it definitely does. And the starting team was different as well. He started Borisa, and it was good to see that. And I think as well, bringing on youngsters, getting their debuts were good in terms of Berry and Jess Simpson. So for me, it's positive because he's bringing in the youngsters. It's showing that he is using the academy and stuff like that. So it was a positive. However, it was annoying that it wasn't shown on MUTV, even though the men's team and the men's game was shown on ITV. It kind of didn't need to be put on MUTV. The radio version, the radio commentary, it kind of didn't need to.
I agree.
For me, it's like if it's televised, if the men's game's televised, the women should be priority that they go on MUTV and not have that out. Or especially if the Malta team should have at least live streamed it, but we wouldn't have known if they were doing or not. But thanks to like everyone that went, in terms of the fans that went, for keeping us updated, because even the Twitter didn't keep us updated with the scores.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And it's even though it went to Twitter, like Manchester United didn't even properly update us. Like it literally, like half time you found out the score, and then full time we found out the score and who scored.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. It was thanks to like I said, thanks to the fans that went for telling us who scored before the half time, because it's one of them that us fans like to keep updated. We like to know who scored, and it's one of them that it's a friendly before the season starts, but we want to know how our players are doing, any injuries, and who's there, who's not, and how the game's going, because we've got a big game coming up this weekend, and we want to know what players will be starting and stuff like that. But it would be good to see what Andy's views on it.
Absolutely. What's your views, Andy?
All I can think of is that they didn't actually really want to do the friendly. Maybe they had a weird hang-up with Visit Malta, didn't they? Maybe it was an agreement to get the training camp that you had to do a friendly with whoever they were. I'm assuming they're the Maltese champions or something like that. Probably linked to the fact that, you know, obviously United are very, very twitchy when it comes to anything that isn't MUTV. If they can get away with it, obviously Prem, there's rights issues with FA Cup and other things. But I agree. I mean, basically, you know, I don't pay for MUTV when because I'm just a women's fan. When there's a women's game on, I'll typically get that monthly pass thing to get it, because why would you? I mean, we talk about, you know, all red, all equal, the whole club mentality, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But yeah, but it was a great response, obviously, to do the friendly. It was great minutes as well. I just think I get the impression that they just didn't really. I mean, to be honest, I don't know what level the Maltese league's at, so it might have been the equivalent of sort of them playing a tier 3 or tier 4 team, which is probably another reason why they didn't want to highlight it, as much. I mean, that's given them the benefit of the doubt. It's probably just because they just didn't think about it, and the men's was playing on from the Friday, so it took precedent. But they easily could have, even if they didn't want to sort of set a precedent for future matches, they could have put it under their own branding, the Maltese Visit Malta's YouTube page rather than United's page, and say, well, it's home broadcaster who's doing it, rather than, United. But obviously, you can't say no against 10-0. Obviously, the good news is that we had a lot of time players. Jess Simpson scored, as you say. Mannion got a minutes back as well, and it's never a bad idea to take people away, into a sort of closed environment. The interesting question is, and I know we might sort of touch through this in the next few pods, really, but you kind of do that at the end of I know you can't do it at the end of January because we're back in the league, but it's kind of an awkward one because you're bonding everyone together, but then, well, you would hope there's going to be new players coming in that you need to rebond as well. And it'd just be interesting to see whether or not we are going to get, new players or many new players, based on obviously, the questions around the ownership and not wanting to put any money in if they're going to sell it by the end of the first quarter this year, which is April for anyone who doesn't work in finance, by sort of end of March, beginning of April, which is obviously the worst time because it's right in the middle of this Prem season and obviously of the WSL as well. And obviously we've sold Lucy Stan, which I'm sure we'll get onto. But the only other thing I would point out as well that I noticed on Twitter, somebody put up a minutes of the last fans forum, the official fans forum that Glazers do and Murtaugh and all the directors and such like. And one of the questions that was submitted to the fans forum was some guy moaning that there was 9 pages of women's football content in the last official United magazine, saying how ridiculous it was. I'm not interested in the women's game and I don't want to know anything about it and it shouldn't be promoted. And me and the rest of my, bigoted friends thought the same. So we still have that attitude and we still have that to fight against, as sad as it is in 2023.
What I've noticed a lot more as well as some people like that, I've noticed some more men fans who are starting to like football ever since the Euros, so that's even positively impacted it, but they don't know the names past Ella Toon, so they'll say, oh, I know this person, but who's the rest of the lineup?
They only know the English players. They only know Tooney, Leslie and Earps. They're the 3 they know because they're the star players for us.
Yeah, 100%.
We'll quickly jump back into the comments and then we'll actually touch on players, incomes, outgoings. Hey there, Vincent. I hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Absolutely, but apparently, the home side didn't want the game televised. Apparently, so it is what it is.
Honest.
Apparently. Hey there, Paul. I hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Ravi said 3-1 to Liverpool. Katie Stengel to score a brace and Kerry Holland to get one.
Mate, are you drunk? I know it's past New Year, but we started a bit early, have we?
I think Ravi might have potentially have done that. Reese has gone to the good point here about Lucy Staniford. So Lucy, she has left Manchester United today. She didn't go to Malta. She's left to Aston Villa. We terminated the contract. If you want me to be honest, I think if we wasn't playing her, fair enough, let her go. Because I think it's right that she deserves to have the game time. She wants a best opportunity to get into England with there being the World Cup in the summer, fair enough. But what my problem is I'm not necessarily blaming Mark Skinner like the majority of the fan base is. What I am blaming is the board of Manchester United. Don't extend somebody's contract if you're going to mutually terminate that contract. That just highlights one of the many things what is wrong with Manchester United. What was the point? We could have easily got 50k for her because we extended a contract, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the things that I noticed though is we had a year contract, didn't we? And then they can sign a pre-contract agreement 6 months before the end of their contract.
A contract ends the following summer, doesn't it? Not this summer. It was this summer.
Yeah,
This
yeah,
summer.
so it's 1 year contract.
1 year.
So, but still, the point, lads, if you're going to look, so the only way it works out, and it really doesn't, and trust me, it is me. Nobody's replaced me with somebody else. I don't mean to defend the club at all, but the only thing I can think of is that they wanted to, that they thought that she was going to go for free in summer anyway, and I'm not going to use her for the rest of the season. So she's going to take up a space that somebody else could take and money out of a salary that somebody else could use. But he has used Lucy Staniforth before. She's not like a starter, but she's not someone you never see either. She sort of sits somewhere in the middle.
She was the person, though, even though when she was injured last season, she was coming on before other players off that bench. Like, we was looking at and go, why is Bo Risa not coming on? And Lucy Staniford on that 0-0 draw is coming on before Bo Risa, who's been injured for months. Yeah, that's not something you can blame for either.
Yeah, I mean, we're never ever going to know the answer. But if there was multiple clubs involved, it seems a very weak position to just go, yeah, we'll terminate, we'll let her go for free. It doesn't match with the sort of Man United that we think we are. But even in the women's game, I think Villa are really strengthening really, really strongly. And obviously with Jordan Nobbs as well, they're going to be a bit of a pain in our backside from next season. Maybe a little bit towards the end of this season, depending on how their results go. I mean, Staniforth is one of those engine room players, what I call. She does really a lot of work. But people like me who get distracted by, a forward, can sometimes miss what they do. So I didn't really see much of what she brought to the table, but I knew enough that she did bring a lot to the table. And again, I wouldn't see it necessarily as a problem that we've got rid of her. I mean, with our thanks, obviously, she did a role for us. But again, it's that Man United thing of, because I don't particularly trust or fully buy into Skinner's vision. But we've got Polly Bancroft. It's her first window, but it's quite short time since she moved in it for her first window. You kind of have to suck it and see and hope that there is some sort of plan ahead, because really, as Chloe's putting out before, we need fullbacks, at least one in this transfer window. And the problem is, if people like us on a bit of a giggle on a podcast know this, professional agents know this as well. So they're not going to give them it away easy to Man United, because they know that they desperately need one. And obviously the issue is as well is, if there is a strong rumor that 34-year-old Rachel Williams is going on loan.
Don't get me started on that one.
And if that's true, answers on a postcard, because he uses her a hell of a lot. Irrespective of view on her, he does use her. So I don't know what's going on there. So, but I sort of messaged privately earlier that I'm starting to learn now. I've done a few of these transfer windows with United, and unfortunately, you don't know the full picture until the end of the window. Until right at the end of the window, which I don't understand why that happens, because other teams seem to do it a bit earlier and they get a better sort of results. We seem to rush things to the last minute. Remember the thing about Brun's loan? She said she got chased in from Paris and she was huddled together on a mobile phone trying to get the contract signed in the bad weather. God's sake, guys, just get it sorted. Second, third week of December. It's not the X factor. You don't have to do it on the final bloody hour of the transfer window. So I'm just trying to roll the punches at the minute, but I don't know what Chloe's view on it is.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Chloe, what's your view on the Lucy Staniford situation?
So what I seen on Twitter today was that it was by mutual consent. So it's she wanted that contract terminated, and for me, as well as us. And for me, I think she wants to be in the first team.
Mm-hmm.
She wants that starting position, and she wants that plane on the ticket to go to Australia, just like Jordan Nobbs. She wants that ticket. She wants to go, and I think even though she was coming off the bench at United, she wasn't a starting 11 unless you games, and if she's probably thinking, and I know we've kind of seen it in terms of why Maya Letitia weren't called up until the last one. That game time is important and being in that certain position is important. And I think the way that Aston Villa are working, they're working well. They're doing a team that knows they're going to be strengthening in terms of your Jordan Nobbs, your Rachel Dailies, your Lucy Stan, your Kirsty Hansons. And yeah, I was gutted to see her go. I'm gutted Lucy's gone, but I think she needed that for game time. And if she wants to be in the next squad for Lionesses, she needs that. But again, it's like what you said, Maisy. Why do a contract for a year knowing full well they'll be going either in the next year or in January, but not getting any money for them? And
Exactly.
I think we all kind of had a feeling that she had gone when she weren't on the plane to Malta, when she wasn't pictured. And I think a lot of us were worried about Leah Golton because she's
fine.
Yeah,
but
she's fine.
But I think she was in. Is she hurt her back or something?
Something about her back, yeah.
So at least we know that Leah's not leaving, and that's a big one for us because Leah's important. But I think we all had a feeling that Lucy had gone. It was just that confirmation of where was she going? Was she going on loan? Was she going permanent? And I think it was just all that. So it's going to leave a massive gap. But I know that what I've seen anyway on Twitter is that we're linked with a right back in Riviere, and I know we're linked with another player, but I can't remember who it is.
It's actually one who Ravi mentioned, Norwegian player. Now I'm not pronouncing the name. I'm the one gonna get it wrong.
Not Nelson. Maybe.
Is she from Brun?
Yeah.
With just Riviera, though, you might know this, Chloe. I swear I've seen a video. Isn't she doing a Jade Moore? Isn't she getting back out of an injury? Isn't she repping an injury at the minute? Because I saw a video that said time on the turf, or her like comes back or something like that.
I think she was in America. I think she's done NWSL, and that's why, because they've not played for a while. So I think it's that. But yeah, we are linked with a couple of players. Whether they are signed and they've just had to wait until Mark's got back from Malta for all the paperwork to be done with. That's where we've got to think, because even though Polly is in charge of the transfers and everything, Mark's got to be there to do the signing and be there.
And he's got to like him.
And he's got to like him, but he's also got to know where he needs him. And I think with getting rid of Lucy Stan, it kind of shows who the priority midfielder is, like the backup midfielder is, in terms of Borisa.
She deserves that, though. She's the fifth highest goal scorer in 2022 and didn't even hardly play in the WSL.
Exactly.
What does that speak?
And she scored 2 goals in Malta. So it just shows that Borisa is a massive player for us. And for me, Borisa now has to start, or at least come on for minutes. And I know we'll touch on the Liverpool match soon anyway, but it's one of them that, and like Andy said, we get frustrated when it comes to the end of the transfer window, when, like last season last January we got 3 players in on deadline day, and it weren't even like we were getting them in. It was just like quick signings because they had no other options. So hopefully we'll get some early signings. We'll get a right back or a left back, at least a full back. We'll get a forward, whether it's loan or not, and then deal with the rest of the business in terms of contracts, because that now needs to be done. Russo, Honor, Earps, a lot of the players need to be done. And
this is what the problem is, though. Like, I'm not too fussed if Lucy Stanley extended a contract. That's fine, right? But we could have sold her for something. We literally paid for, since she extended to whatever till like today, we still paid her wages. They was unnecessary. I love Lucy Stenny. I think she's a great player. I think she's top. I don't think she's fully proved herself at Man United because she was riddled with injuries. But what I have the problem is you know she's very injury prone. You know you're not going to use her if you're bringing in all these new players. So what was the point, first of all, extending a contract when that amount of money of wages that could have gone towards maybe an extension for Honor, Russo, Earps, Hayley Ladd. The list goes on.
Yeah.
I don't blame Skinner for that, but
No.
I blame more. I don't even blame Polly Bamford because she wasn't even there when the contract got extended.
Yeah.
I know that I'm just gonna go off topic here, but I'm just gonna blame the owners and all this because they had no clear drive of what they wanted to do. They took too long in signing ahead of development, and I can't wait till they go. They're absolutely, and they've done nothing but treat this women's team like a piece of crap.
Yeah.
What have they done to benefit it? Nothing.
100%. And I think the thing is as well, it's like, you know, the old adage, even if you're selling your house, some of them spend a couple of grand to make it look pretty to get a better price. You know, a Man United women's team with Russo, Earps, and Honor is a totally different proposition to a new owner. That, you know, from a women's team's perspective, than losing them players are, because we'd drop like a stone if we lost all of them, for example. I think that's a pretty obvious statement to make. I've just found, I think I just sent the link, Maisy, that, I found the video that she had surgery in September and she was like, come back incoming. So I'm getting Jane Moore flashbacks.
But Jane Moore did well this season so far.
She did. No, she did. But they weren't honest about when they expected her to play. So they brought her in January and made it sound like she was just round the corner. And in reality, she was a long, long way away from being actually ready. So if she's going to be able to be ready in January, then fantastic. I just hope that the club doesn't lie to us and make it sound like she's ready to go at some point this season, and we don't see her till next season or something like that. Because in which case, why are we rushing to do that now? We need people to come in. But I just saw that. I've heard it being linked to us, but I've just not seen anybody mention anything. And then I saw that video, and it's like, oh right, okay. And it's from the player. She's not trying to hide it. You know, she's highlighting that she's injured. There's no spy on Jade Moore, by the way, on that at all. I just meant that Skinner made it sound like she was going to play straight away. I know he didn't really, or at least a couple of months later, your March, your April at the latest. He didn't make it sound like that. But yeah, I mean, I do worry about the ownership. I worry obviously about the women's team because it is, you know, a new addition to Man United. We discussed earlier in the pod, you still got a smattering of dinosaurs who don't really care about the women's team and just care about the men's team. And now the men's team's doing well. Sometimes, you know, those kind of people are like, well, who gives a damn about anything else? You know,
they don't give a crap about the club, full stop.
You know, Viva Lads Ten Hag. But I think, you know, it is one of those. I mean, from what I've learned about the Glazers and everything, obviously from coming in from it fresh and a bit of a weird angle with the women's team, is, you know, we just need them out. And then once they're out, there will be an element of rebuilding required anyway, because they're probably going to leave, you know, with the minimum amount of financial problems to themselves. So, for example, that debt, is it going to get cleared?
Nope.
Well, I mean,
from what I've heard, we're in about £1.5 billion debt.
Yeah.
And here's something what Anton mentioned about will the Glazers actually sell, and I'll quickly touch on that, and then I'll go on to Chloe as well about this, is that they know that they're in 1.5 billion debt. They took out 600 mil when they first come about, and then they took around 30 million each year, and it ended up leading to this amount. And what they have said is the club, they're looking at selling it for 6 to 7 billion. Like, realistically, right? If you was a Saudi, a Qatarian, if you was Apple, Amazon, whoever the hell it is, you're gonna want a club where you're going to make money off it. How are you going to make a club off 6-7 billion? You're not going to get much money back off that. No Premier League club will get a massive profit out of 6 to 7 billion. So, and that's a massive problem. They said they're not going to clear the debt, and I can't even trust I don't trust these rumours of this person wants to sign this person wants to sign this club until I see it on paper, because who in the right mind will want to pay 6 to 7 billion? I wouldn't.
problem you've got as well with Man United is Old Trafford's falling down. It's not that bad, but it's not a million miles away. They're going to need to put some money in on the stadium. The way most places get around that is they do a naming rights, and I think everybody would murder anybody who changed, Old Trafford to the blooming Google Arena or something stupid. So that revenue stream is out off the table. Team Viewer is kicked off, but and the contract's been ended by either United or Team Viewer. I think it might have even been Team Viewer, but they're currently on the shirt because they can't find anybody else. Why can't they find anybody else?
They was close to having some Saudi one. I can't remember what it was called, but I seen the actual shirt, and apparently, it got pulled out at the last minute.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems there. So you're right. So you take on Man United, okay? You purchase Man United. Most clubs, the debt does get cleared when they purchase it, but then they purchase it with debt again, if that makes sense. But anyway, let's just play a really nice game. Let's say they do clear the debt, just out of thing. As you say, how they're going to make money to refurb Old Trafford without naming rights? You've got to have issues possibly with the one of women's team training area as well. It's a difficult one. I mean, Man United is a historic club. It should have a lot of people who want to invest in it. But what I want to know, and I know there's a lot, I'm going into the men's territory here, which I don't really know much about. But what about this John Murtaugh guy, Mr. Saviour, doing all these little weird tweets? Where's this come from?
He's just a big tool. I wouldn't even.
You know what I mean? And at the end of the but to answer one of the questions that Anton said, I think they are going to sell. I don't know that much, but I know that their other business assets in the US aren't doing brilliantly. Tampa's costing more than it should for them, and they're kind of a bit wobbly, so they need to. That's so they will do it. It's just going to be a very awkward thing for them to sort out in the current situation in the US. So that's why they want to get it done in Q1, because they kind of need to do it and get it out of the way.
Mm-hmm. What's your opinion on all this, Chloe? Anyway, I know you'll have a big view on it also.
Yeah, no, don't worry. It's fine. I think for me, the quicker this club can be sold and it's no longer the Glazers, the better. I've read or I've seen again on Twitter that we've got someone from Dubai, investors. Mm-hmm. From Dubai that are going to be paying $6 billion, and that's going to be done by March. I think I retweeted it today, and yeah, I've seen that. So there's that many rumors and that many things going around that it's going to be Apple, it's going to be Amazon, it's going to be Saudi, it's going to be Dubai, it's going to be America again, it's going to be England again.
I never want an American owner ever again.
Neither do I. I think for me, I think it's the worry. I think with all the women's fans, I think it's going to be: is the owner going to want women's football? That's going to be the big one. And if we know that, I think with Dubai, if someone comes in from Dubai, I know how risky it is, but it's not as bad as Saudi. And I think for me, I would personally like it to be an English owner, because I know, because they obviously know how big the women's game's growing in England. Like you said, I don't want an American. Definitely don't want another American. And yeah, we don't want Russian.
The Russian can't come and get us of club. But we don't want Russian.
But if we had anyone, I think we would want someone like Dubai or Saudi Arabia, because of the money that they can bring in terms of both men and women's teams. Because even though I think me and Maisy will know this, the men's team will get more money, because that's the way it happens. But hopefully, if we bring in decent owners who talk to Polly about what the women's game wants, and talks to Mark or whoever the manager is, talks to them about what they want in terms of players, in terms of transfers, and gives them the money and backs them, then I think for me, I think that's going to be the best deal. I think we need someone We need an owner who's going to back the women's game and not just the men's, and shows a lot of support for the women's. And even like when do you ever see the Glazers at the men's? You never see them. And for me, I think that needs to change. I think we need someone as an owner who's there, who's always there. And I know there was talks of that it was including the ownership wanted to be included with the fans, like some fan partnership as well. And for me, that would be good. But how would that work? I wouldn't know. So hopefully it will get sold quicker, and hopefully it'll be done soon. And like Andy said, hopefully it'll be done before April. But you know what the Glazers are like.
I would be against Saudis though, because don't forget Newcastle has got Saudi owners, and I like Coffee as stated here about the development of the women's team for Newcastle, the way they're putting so much investment into that team. I know it's going to be a long time till they get into the WSL, because a couple of tiers away, but the way they have put that money in and injected that, they could get into the WSL. Like, if they keep putting that money in, I think that it's going to work. So exactly. I would be against Saudis.
No, I wouldn't. And exactly like that point of view as well, because I don't know if it was their first Newcastle women's game.
Is that St. James's Park?
They've played at St. James's Park that many times already.
Yeah.
It shows how much they want the women's game to grow.
They played it more than like Manchester United have in one season.
Exactly. It just shows that Saudi Arabia ownership, whether you like what happens. I know we don't all like what the Saudi Arabians are doing, especially with the women's rights, but they are backing the women's team, and that's what matters. And like Maisy said, Newcastle women's team will be on the rise if they put the money into it. And I thought Lucy Stan might have gone Sunderland or might have gone elsewhere, but for her to go to Aston Villa was big, and it was a good move for her. But she could have gone to a lower ranked team to get a lot more playing time, but she's not. She's gone to a team that is investing money and is backing their manager, and this is what needs to now happen in terms of United. We need to back the manager in terms of the money and in terms of who we want in transfers, because without the money, the manager can't get the players they want, and that's big. The manager wants players but can't have the money, and we know that, me and you, Maisy, from the men's game, in terms of we know players that would suit United or that have been talked about United, but at the minute it's all about loans. And it's like, if you've got the money, buy the player outright. Don't buy loans. And this is where it comes with the women's. Like, it's not like in the millions for the women's game. It's in the thousands. So give the manager what he wants in terms of money for us to get the decent players that can help us get Champions League.
Yeah, I agree, Chloe, completely. And do you want to touch on anything else, Andy, before we move on to the biggest rivals called Liverpool?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, I hope you understand. We're very good friends. You know that, but I find it difficult when you talk about Saudi Arabia and Qatar. Probably because obviously I have an interest in this. I watched a lot of documentaries on it. There's two ways you can look at it from a purely selfish point of view. That a Qatari owner or a Saudi Arabian owner or a Dubai owner might be slightly more likely to invest in the women's game, to sort of go, don't worry, guys, we're cool, honest, look, and to actually push forward. And if you're not bothered about the motivation, then that's great. Thinking about it, with the way FIFA's gone and the social media, and I believe the last big team in Europe without a women's team was Borussia Dortmund, and they've now got one, but it's in like tier because they want to go from the bottom up, so they're like lower down.
That's crazy.
Yeah, but there literally is now no team that hasn't got a women's team at the big sort of players. So I imagine that it would just cause such a problem. I don't think but obviously there is a danger of what I call shadow withdrawing of funds, like what happened to Liverpool. So not officially saying we're getting rid of it, but they're not backing the manager, not showing the money and that kind of thing. It's difficult, I don't follow the men's game. I can talk a little bit about it. I've seen certain things when I was younger. I know that the Glazers have done a very good job of trying to destroy Man United, and I know that there are justifiable hatred of the Glazers. But what I would say is, don't paint all Americans with the same brush. If you were saying I didn't want you never would. But it's almost like saying, well, say Glazers were a person of color, and you say, well, after that, I don't want another person of color. That would be racist, and people would just attack you quite justifiably. There are, Americans who love our football. Not all of them are idiots. I know that they've totally done a horrible thing, but that is the Glazer family, not Americans. I know that Liverpool's owned by Fenway Park Sports Group, and they have their own issues. But again, I don't remember people saying that they.
And Chelsea's got issues with an American owner as well.
Yeah, but that's the people involved, not the nationality. And I think Arsenal's got one as well.
The Kroenkes, and they've had issues with the Kroenkes. It's not necessarily I have problems with American owners. It's the fact that I feel like at this moment in time, we need to look elsewhere. We can't just look at one place and go, right, this is where we should explore our options. We need to explore all out. Because at all the biggest... You look at all the clubs who are the most successful are the ones who are... You look at Newcastle, who's getting so successful. Manchester City, who's so successful. Even like before Liverpool's takeover, they had the Roman Abramovich, who was so successful. We shouldn't just look at one place and think this is where we should go for. What I mean is that I don't want to just look at an American owner and go, I want that. I want to explore more options, and I'd happily take somebody else.
Yeah, just to be clear. Sorry, just to be clear, I'm not saying that was what you guys were saying. I'm just saying I've seen some things that have gone a lot further online about Americans. But my main issue is with Saudi and Qatar. Yes, it's the way it's going. When you look at PSG, are owned by a Qatari company, I believe. There are a lot of other cities owned by a Qatari company, but it is difficult because yes, the women's rights in Qatar and in Saudi Arabia, mainly Saudi Arabia, are abominable. Until 2019, women were allowed to drive. Lesbianism is illegal. Being gay is illegal. They've just read an article there that a 27-year-old man has been sentenced to 5 years in prison and 500 lashes for the crime of homosexuality. These are the people that you're dealing with. And they are trying to make themselves look better on the world stage. This is why F1's going to Saudi. This is why Formula E is going to Saudi. This is why Ronaldo's essentially been brought to Saudi, because they are trying to make themselves look better without trying to sort out the human rights record. Now, I'm not saying that Man United should screw themselves to make a moral point. I'm not that stupid. But I just find it difficult to think about a country where if I went to Saudi Arabia and I loved who I loved, or I kissed who I like to kiss, I would be arrested and possibly imprisoned and possibly, essentially killed. It's just hard to get behind it. But I agree. I mean, maybe sort of circling it a little bit. I want to get back to a situation. I think FIFA, to an extent, and UEFA want to get back to a situation where the owners of these big clubs aren't just these Middle Eastern states. I think that's one of the reasons why they, one of the reasons that were given about the Super League and trying to fight against that. That you want a situation again that, I don't know, if a French owner could come over, or an Italian or a German or a Spanish. It doesn't have to be, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, even Abu Dhabi is a bit dodgy as well. So sort of, and it's just a difficult one. And I think, at the end of the day, as I say, it's not up to Man United to make a moral decision and say, right, we're not going to take a Saudi Arabian, because that would be stupid, because obviously they've got to play within the same rules. And as you say, City are owned by a Middle Eastern country. Newcastle's going to be up there. But just personally, I just find it hard to listen to. But obviously, if it happens, it happens. And you just hope that they hold they hold United's women's team well. But what I actually hope, to be honest, is that they completely delegate it. Because what I think's happened with Newcastle, and correct me if I'm wrong on this, is there's like a female figurehead. There's like an MD that goes and talks to the media, and the investors are kind
She's
of behind.
called Amanda.
Yeah, and they're
she
kind of
deals
behind
with
the
everything.
camera. Yeah, and they're kind of behind the camera. So if it's going to be like that, I suppose this is the only acceptable way of doing it. If it's actually going to be, here's my big bag of money, push it forward on the table, and some sort of figurehead is being dealt with, rather than, I suppose, the City method, where it literally is one of their princes, isn't it? Who actually shows his face and says, I am the owner of Man City. It'd just be a bit of a different one to do. I'd say that's a personal thing, and I hope it didn't come across that I was lashing out at anybody. It's just hard because it's personal in the sense of, Qatar, Saudi Arabia, it's just difficult. But as I said, I wouldn't want the club that I love, the team that I love, to screw themselves over either. It's just not an easy situation.
Mm-hmm. Final point, and then I'm gonna go into the comments from Chloe.
Yeah, it's just really just to touch on what Andy was saying. It's going to be a difficult one for all involved because I think when Saudi Arabia took over Newcastle, there's a lot of backlash.
Yeah, there was a lot of backlash, especially when the kit changed and stuff as well.
Yeah, in terms of when the kit changed, in terms of like what Saudis, like what you pointed out, their rules in the country, it all kicked off, and the way it kicked off about like how they treated the women, and I think they were worried about what they would do with the women's team. So it all comes back to, if you've got the right owners, you're gonna have the right backing. And like Newcastle have done, they've got owners, and then they've got a spokesperson in Amanda. And Amanda's the one that speaks to the club. She's the one that deals with the clubs. And I don't even, is she from Saudi Arabia, Amanda? No. She's not.
She's English.
She's been brought in by the Saudi Arabians to be that owner, in terms of, she's the owner in the country.
The face, really, isn't it?
She's the face. So for me, if they did that, then I'm happy. And I think that's what Saudi Arabians will do. They'll have a face in the country, and they'll do it all back in Saudi. And it's the same with City in terms of Dubai, because Abu Dhabi, because they've been taken over by Abu Dhabi, or by Etihad as they call it, and they've been backing the women's game for so long, a lot longer than obviously the Glazers have been backing us. And it just shows that even though their rules aren't what we want to hear in their countries, they know how big the women's game is in England, and they're not going to stop that. And I think for me, as long as they know that, then they're going to stick to that. They're going to stick in the women's games, because they know it brings in money. They know it brings in revenue. They know that young girls, young boys will want to buy shirts, will want to play for the academies. It will bring in that money, and that's all. That for them will be in their mind, thinking, we can get money from this. We can get a lot more money from this, and that for me, that's what's gonna. I think that's what will be the big thing. And it's like, again, like what you said, Maisy, I don't want to just see Americans. I don't want to just explore America. I want to explore everywhere. And I think exploring, if we just ended up going exploring America again, I think it'd just be just the same as the Glazers. I think it wouldn't change. I don't think it would change. So I do think we need to explore it. But if we get someone American in, we get someone American in, and it goes from there. So hopefully we choose the right people to take over, and then obviously we'll probably do another podcast on when they do a takeover.
Yeah, we'll jump into the comments now anyway. Nat is in the chat. Hey there, Nat. I hope you're well. Laughing at Megan Campbell. Hey there, I like coffee. Hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Anton spot on. Beth England, Jordan Nobbs, and Nell Staniford all left to get more minutes. It's in fashion. I Like Coffee's gone 4-1 for United. Toon hat-trick, love it. Reese has gone for 5-0 for United. Russo hat-trick. Leon and Garcia to score. Toon to assist. Hey there, Added Time podcast. I hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Good to see you. Liam. Hey there, Liam. I hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Hey there, Lanzel. Hope you're well. Thank you for coming in. Hey there, Patrick. I hope you're well. Thank you for coming in. And no Keen. Harry Maguire should not try out for the women's team. We've got good enough centre backs. We don't need Harry Maguire. And hey there, Rich. Go on.
Isn't he apparently off to Aston Villa?
Nah, it's false.
Was that false?
Yeah, it's false. Hey there, Rich. I hope you're well. Thanks for coming in. Women's team's doing good so far. So what we'll do, I've got my predicted lineup. It's a little bit different, but I don't know how much different it is. Let's have a see. Where is it? Okay. So it's not overly different, but Mary Earps in goal, Hannah Blundell on the left, Millie Turner, Letitia is the centre backs, Honor on the right, Zellerman Haley lad in the middle, Galton's back, Tooney in the middle. I put Garcia on the right and Russo up top. What do you think about that lineup, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. I think the only one, because we now know about a back injury, do you think they will bring Galton in straight away? I can't remember if Paris can play on the left-hand side there.
I think she can. I think she can play anywhere, really.
Interesting because she was being played heavily, but then, as you say, not so much. But it's hard to tell because the last game was a Conte game that was the dead rubber anyway. So, yeah, pretty much exactly what I would have, apart from maybe Paris for Galton with her on the bench because of the back issue and maybe the requirement not to need her. I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? Yeah, I mean, I think obviously the number one, writes itself. The back four writes itself. Zellam's obviously going to be always going to be there, and actually has done okay recently. Then the question is going to be who you're going to match it with. Well, physicality is probably not a bad idea. Chloe will probably talk about this with Gemma Bonner, who's signed, isn't it, for Liverpool. So it's to counteract that sort of physicality. Garcia, I think really Garcia does need to start because for some reason she ended up becoming a bit of a sub player. And I think she's a lot better than a sub player. I don't know what. I think she was injured and we were bringing her back. So maybe that was the reason. The only question I'd pose to you, Maisy, back at you is, do you think Mannion might get a one on the bench then maybe, or do you think she might get put on?
I don't think that Mannion will be a starting 11 player. I think, to be honest, you see the teams who win league titles, if that's women or men's team, is you've got a solid centre-back partnership with a good connection with your goalkeeper. And for me, in my opinion, with Turner, Letitia and Mary Earps, I know Turner can have the odd lack of concentration moment, but I actually think this is probably one of our best centre-back partnerships we've had, and I like the chemistry with Mary Earps. If I was Mark Skinner, I wouldn't be stupid. I wouldn't be stupid to change something what's working. Especially for me, they're probably the best centre-back duo in the WSL, and you don't know if, for instance, we put Mannion in, it's going to disrupt it. And with Mannion being out for so long, I don't want to throw her back into the deep end, especially knowing that it's been on a second ACL. So I will probably chance the Nets probably put her on the bench, give her some more minutes, and let her start again when it comes to FA Cup with Sunderland. And then the reason why I put Garcia in is I think Garcia's pace, because Liverpool are so open, especially at the back. They do the high line press, and I don't think that works, especially the system they kind of play. So I think Garcia's pace is going to be very...
Oh, is that me or?
No, Maisy's frozen.
Okay.
I'll touch on my
on
what I think. So the starting 11, I think it's I agree with that. But obviously, in terms of what Galton on Golton's injury, whether or not they decided to leave her back in.
Sorry about that. Go ahead while we carry on talking.
Yeah, I think with them decided to leave Golton here, they didn't want her to travel over for her then to aggravate it flying and training more for her not to start in the Liverpool game. So I can see her starting in this game. But for me, I think that'll be the start. I do think that'll be the starting 11. But if we think back to the game in Malta, Turner didn't start. Mannion and Letitia partnered at the back. So that for me, it looked like it was a good one. But like Maisy said, I think why change a centre back pairing when you know it's working? And like Mannion's only just coming back from an injury, from a season long injury, and it's gonna take time for her to come in. And if that means that she doesn't start the game but comes on in the 75th, 80th minute just to get 10 minutes, 15 minutes of the game, then that's at least she's getting the game time. And I think for me, I think we'll probably touch on the Liverpool's team in a minute, but
yeah,
I'll touch on that on my point in a minute then. With Liverpool.
Let's stay on to you, Chloe, with Liverpool, because Ravi's asking questions about Liverpool, about Megan Campbell, for instance. I don't particularly rate her. I don't know what you think of her, and I think the player who I'd look out for will be, is it called Missy Bow or something like that? Missy Bow Kearns?
Yeah, there's a few players that I rate at Liverpool who I think are good players. So you've got Katie Stingle, who's
she's good. Isn't she a new signing?
She signed last year, I think it was.
Okay, I thought she signed in the summer.
It was, but she's very good. She's good in the box. She's good outside the box. She's good at free kicks. She's their penalty taker, and she's a player that we need to mark. She's one that she needs to be marked. If she gets the ball, she's quick at passing. So she's one to look out for. You've got like you said, Missy Bow. You've Gemma Bonner's back. Obviously we know from the time where she played at Liverpool, then she played at City, then she went to NWSL, and now she's back. And that seems like what's happening at the minute. It seems like they go into NWSL, getting that try, and then coming back. And
they linked to Sam Kerr from Rangers.
They've also linked to Sam Kerr from Rangers. And if that happens before our game, she's a big threat. She's very good. She's a player that is a very good Scottish. She's a very good Scottish player, and a lot of people are getting confused with which Sam Kerr we're talking about, because they have the same spelling. So there's a Scottish Sam Kerr and there's the Aussie Sam Kerr. So it was.
Yeah, I said it to Ravi about Sam Kerr.
There's a lot of tweets going around at that point going, is Sam Kerr leaving Chelsea, going Liverpool? And we're like, no, it's not. It's not that Sam Kerr.
But I said to Ravi on message, oh, Sam Kerr's linked to Liverpool. Why would Sam Kerr leave Chelsea?
Yeah, exactly. And I saw a lot of that on Twitter. And then, like Ravi put on, Megan Campbell's throw-ins. She's got the long-range throw-ins that are deadly in the box. And if she throws them in and we don't respond quickly enough, and they hit any player, that's going in the back of the net. And they're the things we need to look out for. If Megan Campbell starts, her throw-ins are a big major. And hopefully, Mark Skinner will have looked at them, will have said, right, we need you to mark everywhere, get it cleared and get it out. And don't allow a lot of throw-ins, because Megan Campbell, if she starts, she's going to do the throw-in. She's not going to take them. And that's what we've got to look at. And for me, there's a few other players on there, but I think Katie Single, Gemma Bonner, Missy Bow, and Megan Campbell, I think, are the 4 threats for us.
Mm-hmm. And we'll touch on a bit now with, I know we was dying to talk about this at the beginning, Andy, which was Matt Skinner's talk about the Liverpool game. Would you want to briefly touch into this?
Yeah, I mean, if anyone hasn't seen it, it's a video that he did, and all I could think of, and I'm having to try and be a bit nicer to Skinner after New Year. It's just things I'm getting linked to. But
the year new Skinner
is, I think the guy forgot that he was in Malta talking to the Maltese Supporters Club. They have cameras there, and they can go on a thing called the internet, and everybody else can see it. And it was a difficult one because I tweeted about it. A few others tweeted about it as well, where everyone was quite upset about it. I think partly my upset about it was because we're trying our best to grow the women's game, and it kind of just takes away all of the takes the wind out of the sails. If you say it isn't a rivalry game, it links to that whole put it in the same, as the Americans would say, put it in the same category as going for jelly and ice cream, face painting, go watch the women's football, and it's not a form of childcare. And I was interested today that I saw that a Liverpool fan, I think, had been retweeted by a United fan saying that actually they're upset that Liverpool have done the same thing. They're not saying it's a rivalry either, and they're not sort of saying it either. They're all doing the whole everybody loves each other kind of thing. But I thought it was annoying because it was just a missed opportunity. What he said was factually correct. Because there's only 12 teams. There's that meme about Alex Greenwood that went around that's a little bit misogynistic, but it's also quite funny, which is about the fact she's played for everybody pretty much. But that was because of obviously the short-term contract nature of the women's game. But that's the future. That doesn't have to mean, so that's a past. That doesn't have to mean the future. So you can say, yeah, back in the day, there's no rivalry, but now there is. And body. If you really wanted to be factually accurate about what was being said, or nobody would have hung you from the nearest lamppost if you said, well, yeah, it's Liverpool, like Nat's always said, men's, women's, kids, elderly, doesn't matter what it is, it's Liverpool. We want to beat them, they want to beat us, come on down on for Sunday, it's going to be brilliant, and sort of advertise it like a rivalry game. And it will be, similar to Chelsea earlier in the year. Obviously didn't end well, but we're in the North Terrace that's now open. It's going to be pretty much close to a sellout. The atmosphere is going to be brilliant. It's going to be what our girls deserve. And it should build on memorable rivalries. It should create memorable rivalries. The only reason why there isn't a rivalry as much with Liverpool is because they got relegated after COVID. And because obviously when we first played them, that was during the time where we had to fight against that attitude of it's a women's game, don't chant, it's a women's game, don't scream, it's a women's game, don't, slate the players or slate the referees. And that development was still happening. But now that development has already happened. We're not the only ones who have away ends now. Chelsea and Arsenal have away ends when they go to the Emirates. There are other supporters groups with coaches and songs, and so we have won the war in relation to the culture of what we want to develop in the women's game. But obviously we haven't had the chance to do that with Liverpool. Now, obviously there was an issue with Liverpool. Vicky Jepson was part of the issue in the sense of she really was very anti what we were trying to achieve. But also she used that, and I have to give her credit at the time as the then Liverpool manager, she used that to try and get in our heads to throw us off of the game. There was a little bit of sort of briefing to the Echo about, we're underdogs and we know it's going to be a hostile atmosphere and that kind of stuff. So she kind of played the game and also didn't play the game. And obviously there was, a few chants. Well, there was mainly the bad chant that was used, in against Liverpool, though I don't think it would be used again. And I think, why don't we use it as a fresh start? It is a rivalry, but that doesn't mean that, we're going to be swearing our heads off, or, what it means is when I think of a rivalry game, I think of passion. I think of what gets you involved in the game. And I think of things like Arsenal away. I think of ecstasy and and cheering after going behind and coming back, and that's what we want. And actually, don't alter the stream, guys. I'm going to praise Katie Zellum because there is a frozen image of her, and the second he said it's not a rivalry, she literally went.
I've seen that, yeah.
And this is Little Miss Hempo. This is Little Miss Give Us a Hug, Georgia Stanway, because I know the chat for City. So when she was at City, obviously, she was the last person I expected to show a negative face on what Skinner was saying. If anything, I thought she'd be sort of echoing what he was saying. So either she's changed and she's got the bit between the teeth and she's like, yeah, okay, or actually Liverpool is. If you want any more evidence that Liverpool is a different game, men's or women's, than any other game, look at her. She is literally on record saying, the people who play for City are my mates. We've grown up together. I don't see it as a problem if I give you a hug after the match. Almost fighting against that rivalry idea. But for Liverpool, she wants this rivalry. So, Liverpool is a court above the rest.
Exactly. And we've always had that, though, at Manchester United. It's always Liverpool who's our biggest rivals. And I think in the kind of way, I'm not saying he's probably interpreted it. I'm not saying he's interpreted like this, but it's kind of like he doesn't understand the history of Manchester United by saying Liverpool isn't a rival, because even a lot of these fans who are women's supporters now, a lot of them have come from the men's game, and the men, they're going to look at this game as the same rivalry as what they have seen it from the men's previously. And I think you need to take them rivalries from the men's side and use it the same in the women's team. And rivalries are the ones what builds up games, builds up away areas as well. And the thing is, for me, I like new rivalries being made in the women's game. You look at Durham, for instance, because that's not a rivalry in the men's game. I like stuff like that, but I just feel like in the kind of way it annoyed me a little bit to think that he didn't understand the history of Manchester United, to say it's not a rivalry, and Katie Zellum, being a Manchester United fan, would definitely grown up hating Liverpool just because it's Liverpool.
She's the last person in the world I thought would react like that, but she would have grown up hating City as well. So that's why it's interesting to see the difference there. But I just want to, I'll let Chloe come on this because I've monologued a little bit. But the only way I could see that as a benefit is if a manager wanted to take the pressure off the players. You only want to take off the pressure off the players if you see it as a bigger team than what we're playing, and Liverpool clearly isn't in the women's game. So it just seems like a strange decision to make. We're at home, first game after Christmas. I mean, historically, we played pretty awful after Christmas, first game back all the time. So I'm a little bit worried about that. But it was just a missed opportunity, and it's just there's certain things you can't change. It's not The Sims. You can't move LSV from where it is to the middle of Manchester. You can't change other issues with where it is, but you can avoid, I suppose what you would say is unforced errors, like you would in the football. You could avoid unforced errors, and you could have done a proper to be honest, you will eventually be able to do it with the women's game, but you could. What about 1.5 minute or 1 minute vignettes on United's webpage? Roy Keane talked about what it's like to play against Liverpool. Even some of the existing male David De Gea, maybe use those men's that have a crossover link that's quite strong. So
I must be honest though, Katie Zellum redeemed herself after not knowing who Solskjaer was when she was younger.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean. But why don't you just use some of that, and obviously use our players as well, and just have these little it bleeds different kind of little. You could have easily advertised it a lot better.
Mm-hmm. I completely agree, and I think that would have been a good idea to do that. Or people who actually played against Liverpool back in 2019 to say what the game was like in the 2020, because you look at the players who's in it now, you look at, for instance, Leon, Rachel Williams, Bo Risa, they wouldn't know the rivalry to play against Liverpool. But let's go on to Chloe about your opinion on it too.
Yeah, I agree with both your opinions in terms of that Skinner shouldn't have said what he said. It is a rivalry. United Liverpool is for me, United Liverpool is probably one of the biggest rivalries now. I don't think it's City anymore. I don't think that rivalry is as bad. It's a derby, but our rivalry with Liverpool and our rivalry with Leeds are bigger than City. There's a lot more fights and a lot more, especially in the men's game. It seems like it's not as big anymore, but Liverpool is the biggest. I think we see that, don't we, Maisy, in terms of the...
Yeah, and even if we got Leeds, because we were saying that we wanted Leeds in the FA Cup because of the rivalry.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't play Leeds.
But we don't play Leeds. But the thing is if we played Leeds in the women's game, you would see the biggest rivalry there is, because Liverpool and Leeds are different for us. We see them as more as rivals, like I said, more rivals as City. City's our derby. City's that's just a local derby. It's Manchester against Manchester. Blue against red. It's who's taking over Manchester for the first half of the season. But in terms of Liverpool, yeah, they are our rivalry. They are the team that we always say we've got 20 times in trophies. Liverpool don't, and that's where it stems from. And
it stemmed from the 80s, didn't it?
And I don't agree with the songs that they sing. Some of them, like Liverpool sing about Munich, United fans sing about Hillsborough. Yeah. That shouldn't happen. That shouldn't happen. And if that does happen, it comes from the men's side. It never comes from the women's side. It comes from fans that have seen the men's team and are only just coming over to the women's team. And them, like, we change a lot of our songs that we change a lot of the words, and that's what should happen in the women's game. But that's one for me, that you go to the men's match with Liverpool United, you will hear them happen. You will hear them being sung, whether it's at Anfield, whether it's at Old Trafford. You will hear them being sung, but you wouldn't hear them being sung at United at the women's match. And I think, like Andy touched on, there was that one time where it was sung on, and United got a lot of stick for it, and it's one of them. But for me, the way Katie Zellin reacted to it shows a captain, shows a United fan, but also shows a player that knows Liverpool, because she
played for Liverpool.
So she's played for Liverpool, then she joined United, and she was obviously in the first team to play Liverpool when we first joined, because obviously Lizzie Arnott scored the first goal for us against Liverpool. And that for me, she knows both sides, and I think that her more having to go and play for Liverpool than it does now, because she had to leave the academy to go and pursue her dreams, and that was to go and pursue them at Liverpool. And that, for me, she knows how big of the rivalry it is. She probably got stick from her family for doing that, for joining Liverpool when she's a United fan. And that just shows the passion she has, and the passion that a Red fan does. And if I'm right, Mark Skinner is a City fan.
Oh, don't even tell me that.
Mark Skinner is a Man City fan.
I don't think it's a particular secret that you spent months trying to get me to not be as nasty to Skinner as I am, and you've just thrown that one out on camera.
You've thrown the bombshell there, Chloe.
I could be wrong, but that's what I've seen on Twitter.
Well, he's not on Twitter, is he? Unless if you get it from his sister. What is his name? The other one, his sister, his cousin, or whatever.
I've just seen people tweeting that he's a City fan when he was coming over United.
All I could think of Birmingham City, maybe, because they'd use that slang in that area, maybe. Because
You just said it was a City fan, so you...
Well, nothing's coming up here, but do you know what the funny thing is? What's just come up? Right, this is directly on the Man United website. Matt Skinner says derbies are different and all form goes out the window, but that's not the case with Liverpool because it's a normal game just like anything else. It's a derby, isn't it?
So
it's a Northwest derby.
He's basically saying that
He's
a derby,
contradicted himself.
A Manchester derby is bigger than a Liverpool rivalry.
Get out of it. Get out of it. He's going to probably say next. Everton's a bigger rival than Liverpool.
If I was to pick, if I could go to 2 games, men's side, women's side, or 2 games that I would wish we had, would be Liverpool Leeds. And that's just because of the rivalry. And I don't see, we play City that many times, whether it's Conti Cup, FA Cup, League. We play them that many times. It's not a rivalry anymore. It's just a derby. It was fun when we played them once or twice, like it was in the league, when you just play them in the league. That was your derby. That was your rivalry. But now we're playing them 3 or 4 times. It was like last season. Did we play them like 4 times last season? 5 times?
Yeah, we played them quite a few times. Yeah, 4, I think.
4 times because we played them twice in the league.
One in the Conte and then one in FA.
So it gets, that's where it's like you overplay him so you don't see him as rivalries anymore. Whereas Liverpool, they went down. We hadn't played them. We didn't get drawn against them in the Conti Cup. We didn't get drawn against them in the FA Cup. Now they're back. The rivalry's back, and that's what we want. And I think when the draw happened for the Women's FA Cup, I remember messaging in the group and going, I want Leeds.
Yeah, and I agreed with you, didn't I?
I was like, I want Leeds, because if we got Leeds at LSV, that rivalry would have to have police there because it would be that bad. And you just have troublemakers coming from the men's team on both sides for me if that happened. And that's not what you want, but you want that rivalry to build up in the women's game, and that's what we all want to see, but we don't want to see the bad side of the rivalry.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain songs like Build a Bonfire, which actually, if you listen to it, is probably one of the worst that you could, it's throw so-and-so, and burn them all to death. That's essentially what it says. But the Portland Fawns have sung that about the Seattle Rain, and I've seen it on their official Twitter page, a few years ago. So there is also an element of context on that. And you could argue, well, if you accept that chant, then actually what is off the table? Because obviously that's quite a violent chant. But yeah, I mean, we are going to be under the microscope. It's the first time that we played it at LSV since what happened against Liverpool. But yeah, I mean, apart from the one that I referred to, Where's My Car Stereo and a lot of others came out, but they're just, nobody has a car stereo anymore. It's all, it's all just slang. It's all historical. And actually, I used to know a Liverpool fan I used to work with, and his view, he was a men's fan, men's season ticket holder, home and away, and his view that the worst by a mile team to play in relation to abuse that they got, and like, as you say, Hillsborough chants and horrible chants, was actually Everton, because they would go further than United fans would do at Anfield or Old Trafford. But it is only United that get the shit really sometimes.
Exactly. Abdullah is in the chat. Hey there, thank you for coming in. I've not seen the chat before, so thank you very much for coming in. Rabbit, how difficult will it be to break Liverpool down? Well, if I'm watching you based off Everton, I'd say not very hard.
No.
It's not very hard. You're very open in the back. You're literally playing a high pressing line in the back 3, and you've got no pace at the back.
I think that's where they've brought in Gemma Bonner. I think they've brought in Bonner for the pace. And that's now where we're going to have to look at in terms of who's now been brought in for Liverpool to see where their weaknesses are. And full well the weaknesses, it will be in defence, but whereabouts?
That's why I'd have Garcia.
Yeah, I would have the pace. I would have Garcia and Leah. But if Leah can't start due to a back injury, or due to an injury, then start Nikita Paris, or start Leon. Leon for
Leon's
me.
a good shout as well.
What's going on with Leon?
Again, Nikita Paris plays for Everton, so she knows the rivalry with Liverpool.
And she's a Liverpool fan. Yeah, Andy's made a good point. What's going on with Leon?
Yeah.
So, what formation will Liverpool play? Do they normally play a 3-4-3?
3-4-3. They might go to a 4-3-3 with Gemma.
We'll have to see. Hey there, Andrew. Hope you're well. Thank you for coming in. Are we going to muller them? Well, who knows? But what Matt Skinner says about Man City, all form goes out the window. Now's gone for 5-1 for United. Vincent's gone for a very optimistic 8-0 for United, and Andrew's gone for 4-0 for United. Andy, what's your score prediction?
I'm hoping that we're going to wobble to start because we do after a break. That we never had the warm weather training before. We've never had that. So maybe that's what the whole point of that. I think we could have a solid 3-0. I think we could have more than that as well. But I think there is going to be, you've got players you might want to give game time to a little bit as well that might affect that score line. If we start, say we get 3-0 up at half time, that might bring players on that actually would make us less likely to score more, if you know what I mean, like Mannion and others like that. Because we've got Liverpool, and then we've got Reading away, which possibly is a Mannion debut point because of the quality of the pitch. Because no disrespect to Sunderland, but the pitch is not Bridgewater level, but it's not brilliant. So would you risk a knee injury on that? I pretty much would worry about that. So I agree what we said about Mannion, that maybe give her some minutes, maybe get her to have the full 90 if she can against Reading, and then just keep her in reserve for Sunderland. Because I say that. I mean, I've seen pictures. It doesn't look that bad, but you just can't tell from pictures, and it depends at this time of year, late January. That could be a problem. But I think we could have a 3-0 win. I think what we really want to do is just try and get that momentum, because again, there's not a vast amount of games in blocks in the women's team before the international break. So you've got Liverpool, you've got Reading, you've got obviously the FA Cup, and then I think you've got the rearranged Spurs game as well. And then is it the Arnold Clark, Chloe?
I think there's one more game after the FA Cup before Spurs and then Arnold Clark.
Right. Yeah. So you want to get that. You want to get that momentum, don't you?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I'm going to go for 2-0 because I know it's just after the winter break. Not everybody's going to be at full fitness. So I'm happy with a 2-0. It beats the rivals. So I'm good with that. Chloe, what are you going to go for?
I was thinking of a 2-1 because I can see Liverpool scoring. Unfortunately. It's that Katie Stingle. I can see her scoring. But it's like what Andy touched on with. It's the first game back after the break, but we've never had a pre-season game before the second half of the season. We've never had that, so hopefully that momentum's carried on. I might be able to be at the game, but I don't know yet. I've got to wait for my rota on the Saturday night, so potentially I could be at the game, potentially I can't be.
So which game is that?
Liverpool.
Oh, okay. But it's Sunday, isn't it?
2:05, so I might be able to make it.
Oh, okay.
But I'm missing Reading. I'm missing the FA Cup. So then my next game is on the 5th of Jan. I think are we at home? Are we against Brighton?
We got Everton at home. I forgot about them. We got Everton at home in February.
On the 5th, and then like Andy said, it's the rearranged game of Tottenham, which obviously I can't make because I'm working. But then it's Arnold Clark then. So it seems like we've got 3, 4, 5 weeks of league, FA Cup games mixed with Conti Cup quarterfinals. Then for teams who are in the Conti Cup, and then it's by February we're into international break, and we're worrying about players who might get injured because of the amount of times England are now playing. Mm-hmm. So I think I'm going my score predictions 2-1.
Oh, we'll wrap it up here. We've gone quite a while today. Had a lot to talk about. Thank you both, Andy and Chloe, for coming on. Andy, would you like to shout out your socials?
Yep. So I was just I still can't find who he supported. By the way, I was just looking while we were discussing.
I couldn't find it either.
I did find the quote, which I'm sure we can save at some point, which that's the most cringiest thing I've ever seen. But he said it when he was at Orlando, so I was like, thank God, never said it here. But yeah, no, obviously at the minute it's just at AJO_87, and I really appreciate, as always, you having me on.
Not a problem at all. And Chloe, would you like to shout out your socials also?
Yeah, my social there is Chloe Riley 14 on Twitter. Thank you, Maisy, for having me on. It's been a fantastic podcast, and it's definitely a good start to 2023 for Devils United.
Thank you very much, Chloe. Got a few podcasts this week, but actually they're all derby previews. Got a Manchester City preview this week. Got a Manchester City fan coming on, and I've got a sporting one against Benfica. Like, they're all derbies this weekend, so I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully the right team wins. Man United Sporting, but you never know. Thank you both, Andy and Chloe, for both coming on. Smash that like button, smash that subscribe button, and we'll see you on Wednesday for the Benfica versus Sporting preview. Pit Polino to score, everybody. Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.